Lately, my projects have been testing my patience, and this cute mid-century bookshelf has been no exception. Patchy finish, uneven stain, and even peeling paint were just some of the challenges while working on this piece. I got this retro bookshelf from Marketplace before I got blocked there, which I still haven't figured out. I had a vision for this piece and was determined to lighten the wood and give it a more modern look. The bookshelf does not have any marking, so I'm not sure how old it might be, but I would guess it's from the 50s, so 70 years at least. While it had some scratches and stains, nothing seemed beyond repair. What truly drew me to this piece was the stunning wood grain peeking through the orange varnish. I just knew I had to highlight that. Orange varnish has never been my favorite, although I have gotten the comment that mid-century finisher should be left alone, aka orange. But since it is not my vibe, I get my favorite chemical stripper to remove that nasty varnish. I'm using V33 chemical stripper that I apply directly onto the wood and spread evenly with an old paintbrush. I usually let the gel work for about 30 to 60 minutes depending on how thick the varnish is, before removing it with a spatula. Chemical stripper is like the name says, chemical, and so I should have used gloves for that part, so please learn from my mistakes and use appropriate protection when working with furniture. I didn't remove the door at first, but quickly realized my mistake and realized the work will go so much smoother if I just detach the door first. Carpet scraper, which you can see here, is one of my favorite tools to remove varnish and paint. This time I decided to use it to remove the varnish on the tight spots that might be hard to access with this spatula. This is just my way of working, but you could definitely use a stripper here as well. I also used the carpet scraper to remove any leftover varnish and stripper. The reason I didn't use carpet scraper in the first hand was because I didn't want to damage the veneer. The veneer on this piece is quite thin and I wanted to be just as careful as possible with this piece. Scraping off the varnish with carpet scraper could potentially end with a scratch or two if I wasn't careful, which I wanted to avoid. After scraping and scraping, my hands got tired and it was finally time to sand. The selection of sanding machines is quite limited here in Sweden in my opinion, but I managed to find this Cat Orbita sander for around $90 and it has worked pretty good so far. To sand this bookshelf I'm using 120 grit paper as I don't want to damage the veneer, but I still want to bring out the wood fast and effectively. Midway through the project, I activated my last two brain cells and thought the sanding would go much easier if I removed the back of this shelf. Using a hammer, I hit the back a few times to loosen the nails, holding the back in place and removed it. While cleansing the shelf from dust, I got super excited over the wood grain that got revealed here. Little did I know how bad this project will go from now on. Like I mentioned in the beginning, my vision for this piece was to keep the wood in a light color and highlight the wood grain. To achieve that, I used a paint wash I had left over from previous projects. I have lightened teak wood before and it looked gorgeous, but this time it did not look just as good. Once I removed the paint wash with a kitchen paper towel, I could see the color didn't look even, but I honestly ignored all the red flags and kept going. I should have stopped right there. I should have taken a step back and really think hard if I should keep going with the paint wash. But sometimes I try to convince myself that my vision will work, even though deep inside my heart I know it won't. And I know I'm not the only one who does that. So let me know in the comments if you are just like me and keep pushing, even though the red flags could not be bigger. To seal the bookshelf, I used oil-based polyacrylic from Zar. I found this big can of polyacrylic on sale for only $9 and thought it would be a great time to put it to use. At first, I used a 10cm roller, but quickly switched to a bigger one as it covered bigger area at once. The color turned out to be way more orange than I wanted, and the paint wash made the wood look very patchy. So once again, I busted out my trusty orbital sander together with 120 grit paper and sanded the entire bookshelf to raw wood. There was some missing veneer on the sides of the shelf, for which I used a wood filler from Liberon in color dark oak. And you may wonder, why did I choose dark oak if I wanted to keep this piece in light color? Well, that's because I decided to go bold and try a dark stain instead. I'm not sure if it's gonna work, if it's gonna look good. I'm actually a little bit stressed right now because I've been working so hard on my projects and every single one goes sideways. So Lord have mercy and let's pray that it's gonna work like I'm envisioning it. To apply the stain, I used a regular kitchen sponge as it usually gives me the best results. And what I do is to apply the stain with the wood grain. Unfortunately, that didn't work either. The wood looked kind of orange-brown in real life and was extremely uneven. Honestly, it looks so bad. I'm disgusted with myself right now because I have no idea how I managed to take this beautiful wood or veneer and make it so ugly. Leave it to me. But as the last resort, all I can do now is to paint it. Honestly, that's all I can do right now in order to kind of save the situation. And I know I'm gonna get so much hate for that because obviously, who paints beautiful teak veneer, right? But that's literally the last thing I can do to kind of save this piece. Yeah. Since I was gonna paint this piece, I made sure to prime it first, and for that I used Zinsser Bean Shellac Primer. But I made a huge mistake here. Can you guess what I did wrong here? Once the primer was set and dry, I decided to go with a warm grey color from Jotun, which I believe is a Norwegian product. I had plenty of leftover paint from previous projects, besides this color sells really great in my area. Normally I would have used my spray gun to paint my furniture, but I was actually working on a different project at the same time, so I used a 10cm soft roller, which is super beginner friendly. After applying 2 coats of paint and letting it cure for a few days, the worst thing possible happened. The paint started to peel off. I think what happened was that I didn't sand off the stain first and it was oil-based. So the primer didn't really have something to stick to, even though I did make a scratch test after applying the primer and everything seemed fine. But there is no reason to cry over spilled milk. and instead I focused on solving my own mistakes. I honestly can't express how tired I got from this project, having to pivot so many times and had to take a different approach. But I guess the universe had quite some lessons in store for me this time. This project just keeps on trying my patience. I dropped the drawer, so I have to fix it now. Last but not least, I decided to give this piece well-needed extra protection in form of water-based polyacrylic. Polyacrylic has a tendency to look milky and streaky, so I mixed a little bit of paint with the varnish. That way the end results will be nice and even. Polyacrylic is very watery, therefore it's very important not to overspray with it, otherwise it might drip on the sides before it has a chance to dry. This brass hardware from Amazon was the cherry on top that this bookshelf needed. I also made sure to install a new keyhole that would match the hardware. And that's how I transformed this mid-century bookshelf to this modern-day piece. It's definitely not how I envisioned this project to go, but I have certainly learned my lessons and hopefully won't make the same mistakes in the future. But I would love to hear your feedback, so make sure to comment below and subscribe to never miss upcoming furniture adventures.